The ancient Chinese general and military strategist Sun Tzu once wrote, "If you know your enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. But to know them truly, you must study them. Examine every move they make, every vow they break, every smile they fake, and every claim they stake, until no mystery remains." Okay, so maybe I made that last bit up, but you get the point. Anyway, apparently Hasbro must have taken this advice to heart when they introduced the Autobot Perceptor in 1985. Although, I'm pretty sure that having him transform into this was not quite what old Sonny had in mind. If you're like me and grew up in the 80s and had older siblings, chances are you had one of these lying around in your house. Yeah, back in the day before kids were glued to their iPhones and tablets, hell, even the telly, they were most likely looking down into one of these things, marveling at the wonders of seeing a leaf or an ant head way up close. Yup, science was actually considered fun. But by the time I came along, my brother's toy microscope had lost all of its plastic slides and stuff, and so its actual purpose was lost on me, and I just held it sideways and treated it like a pistol. Honestly, once action figures came into the picture, the wonders of science had been lost on me and my friends. I remember one of them actually getting a chemistry set, which seemed cool. Although we never set off any explosions, we did manage to create a lot of black goop. But once all that was done, it was back to my real American heroes. Anyway, the reason I bring this up is to explain just how not excited I was the first time I laid my eyes on the Autobot scientist Perceptor in the 1985 Transformers catalog. I mean, while I did find his pretty proportional robot mode noise, seeing his microscope alt mode next to it pretty much sucked out whatever excitement I might have had at the start. And his profile, which I would read a little later on, wouldn't help much either in winning me over. Perceptor's main role is studying how the Autobots should adapt to Earth, and conversely, how Earth's alien environment is affecting the Autobots. Extremely intelligent, his capacity for data storage is second only to Optimus Prime. Although familiar with all the sciences, his specialties are metallurgy, molecular chemistry, and electrical engineering. Basically, stuff that just flew over my head. Yeah, I guess I wasn't much of a science guy growing up. And although being able to convert his lens barrel into a powerful light cannon that could blast a hole in a cinder block wall 2,000 miles away with pinpoint accuracy did sound cool, overall I just found this often absent-minded character who preferred his work over the company of other Autobots to be pretty weak, just like his lenses apparently. Anyway, Perceptor, alongside most of his fellow 85 Autobots, made their animated debut in the second season of the cartoon. And well, he was portrayed exactly how you would imagine any scientist would be portrayed, basically taking over the role that Wheeljack served in the first season. But despite being characterized as a very mild-mannered and good-natured individual, to their credit, the writers of the series did show us the value of having a science dude on the team, even if, apparently, he was a Decepticon. In the episode Microbots, when Megatron uses the artifact called the Heart of Cybertron to give him added power, Perceptor devises a plan to shrink himself, along with Bumblebee and Brawn, who initially insulted Perceptor for not being a soldier, down to microscopic size in order to enter Megatron himself, to disable the Heart of Cybertron, which they do, saving the day for the Autobots, and winning for Perceptor a new best bud in Brawn, who, honestly, Perceptor should have just left in microscopic form and stepped on for his insolence. Just kidding. And in the episode Cosmic Rust, Perceptor saves the Autobots and Decepticons from a deadly metallic plague with his invention called Corostop. But possibly his greatest achievement was saving the Earth itself in the episode The Revenge of Bruticus, where Perceptor plays the key role of repairing a space bridge wrecked by the Insecticons by using parts from both Prime and Megatron, enabling a joint Decepticon-Autobot contingent to travel to Cybertron and stop the Combaticons' plan to pull the Earth into the sun. Thanks to Perceptor's repair work, the Earth's orbit is restored, preventing the planet's destruction. So, good job, Perceptor. Now, when 1986 rolled in with the new full-length animated Transformers movie, the first draft featured an Autobot named Mentlar, a character inspired by the scientist Carl Sagan, who sported a big head, that is Mentlar, not Carl Sagan, and converted into a radar disc truck. Granted, Perceptor most likely already existed at this point. It's quite possible that Mentlar was always intended to be just a placeholder for Perceptor. Anyway, most likely due to his very unique role as the smart guy, and the fact that they also killed off both Autobots who came closest to his intellect, Perceptor was one of the few 84-85 characters to be featured in the movie that didn't get killed off. Although, he did come pretty close to having his nut cracked by Rumble and friends, but thanks to Blaster's little army, he lives. And after serving his main purpose, i.e. proclaiming that Optimus Prime's wounds are fatal, he is pretty much shoved to the background midway through the movie and eventually forgotten. But despite his disappearance, we do know for a fact that Perceptor survives because he's still around in the post-movie third season, where he manages to be once again featured in a rather odd episode called The Face of Nijika. In the episode, Perceptor along with fellow Autobots Rodimus Prime, Ultra Magnus, and Blur are stranded on the sealed-off world of the Zamojin, who are basically a really bad Asian stereotyped alien race with a little Mongolian and a little Japanese. I mean, the main alien's dude's name is, and I kid you not, Katsudon. Now that makes me really hungry. Actually, I could really go for some all-you-can-eat Mongolian barbecue. Anyway, sorry. Perceptor, who is locked in alt mode, has his mind transferred by Katsudon into an ancient exploration drone named Nijika, basically turning him into a space geisha. I know, weird. In the end, Perceptor and company are able to rid the Zamojin of the real problem, the Quintessons, and restore their collective telepathic star-powered technology. But that's not all, folks, as apparently scientists are in high demand, as long after the Transformers cartoon ended in the US, Perceptor still managed to make a surprise return years later in the Japanese series Transformers Victory. In the episode, The Death of Jinrai, Perceptor, along with a surprisingly alive Wheeljack and another Japanese character, Minerva, returned to Earth in order to save the mortally wounded god Jinrai by overseeing a risky system transplant into a new body, creating Victory Leo. He repairs the also crippled Starsaber and installs a unification circuit, allowing him to combine with Victory Leo to create Victory Saber. So yeah, great job, Perceptor, and Wheeljack, and Minerva. Anyway, given Perceptor's many exploits and adventures in the cartoon, the same can't really be said for the original Marvel comics. I mean, he's there, first introduced in issue 17, The Smelting Pool, where he leads an Autobot cell in Cybertron with his bud, Blaster. Eventually, though, Perceptor does make his way to Earth, where he is welcomed with open arms by the Rapid Anti-Robot Assault Team, or RAT, by the very modestly dressed, superpowered being named Circuit Breaker. Seriously though, even if she didn't actually shock me, her circuitry-themed costume definitely left my preteen body rather tingly inside. Anyway, Perceptor and company are all taken out by Circuit Breaker and get their faces ripped off to serve as wall decor, and their bodies are combined into a super robot for Circuit Breaker to control in order to take out a couple of Decepticon punks who were running about and amok across the US vandalizing monuments. And for their help, Perceptor and company are thankfully released. And speaking of being thankful, I just want to thank all of you for getting this far into my video. If you're enjoying what you're watching, I do hope you'll consider helping my channel out by giving this video a like, a comment, and a share. And if you haven't yet, a sub would definitely go a long way in helping me out as well. But as always, whichever way you choose will be extremely appreciated. So, after being freed from his Raat Trapped, Perceptor returns to the Autobots just in time to witness the unfortunate death of Optimus Prime, and as such helps organize the process of choosing a new leader, which ends up being Grimlock. Unfortunately, it doesn't take long for everyone to realize that as far as Autobot leaders are concerned, the Dinobot is kind of a dud. So eventually, Perceptor sides with his bud Blaster in opposing him, until Prime eventually makes his inevitable comeback. Ultimately, though, Perceptor ends his US Comics run as he comes head-on with the underbase-powered Starscream, and while he is not shown getting deactivated, Perceptor is listed as one of the many casualties of the super-powered Seeker. But don't feel too bad for Perceptor, because it's revealed literally years later in the pages of the IDW series Regeneration 1, which was meant to be a continuation of the Marvel story, that Perceptor gets better and is alive and kicking on Cybertron, playing a crucial support role to the legendary Autobot team, the Wreckers. Speaking of which, how does Perceptor the Wrecker sound? Well, the boys in IDW thought that sounded like a great idea. So, during a mission, Perceptor is gravely injured, having his chest blasted open by the Decepticon Turmoil, and would have died had he not been saved by the Autobot Drift. This near-fatal encounter forces Perceptor to re-evaluate his place in the war. Determined to contribute more directly to combat, Perceptor gives himself some upgrades: a near-impervious breastplate, aiming arm stabilizers, and a monocle-like targeting optic. In a nice callback to his original ability to blast a hole in a cinder block wall 2,000 miles away with pinpoint accuracy, Perceptor basically reinvents himself from scientist to stone-cold sniper, making his grand debut by taking out the monstrous Decepticon Monstructor with a single expertly placed shot to his apparent weak spot. And with that, Perceptor 2.0, now an emotionless killer, earns a place among the elite wreckers, where his scientific precision translates perfectly into battlefield lethality. Despite this wild departure from the traditional Perceptor character, it kind of makes sense for the Autobot scientist, since, as I see it, science itself can be seen as a means to not just understand the universe and all of its secrets, but in turn devise ways to improve oneself, to be more effective to handle whatever situations we might find ourselves in. So yeah, after nearly dying, it made sense for Perceptor to transform himself into a more capable warrior. And going by this logic, it also explains how another version of Perceptor went to great lengths, in his opinion, to become a better scientist. Perceptor in the Transformers animated series is one strange-looking dude, even by animated standards, with an oversized and bulbous head giving some strong leader or Mojo Jojo vibes. But his visual appearance is not really what sets him apart. As head of the Autobot Ministry of Science, and thus one of the finest minds on Cybertron, animated Perceptor thought it made the most logical sense for him to basically delete his emotions and personality to make room in his hard drive so he could be even smarter. And to nail this point across, no actual person was hired to voice Perceptor, and instead, his voice is generated by an electronic speech synthesizer, which was a deliberate homage to renowned scientist and fellow super genius Stephen Hawking. Despite this rather unique and striking interpretation, animated Perceptor basically serves more of a glorified cameo in the series. Although he is credited for spearheading the creation of the Elite Guard twins, Jetfire and Jetstorm, who could combine to form Safeguard, and, more significantly, the creation of the giant Autobot, Omega Supreme. I guess wiping out one's personality does pay off sometimes. In the show, he transforms into a cross between an off-road truck and a mobile lab for his now mustachioed mate Wheeljack to work on. Pretty cool if you ask me. It's a pity that Hasbro didn't give us a toy of this animated Perceptor. But that being said, they did give us a cool Perceptor toy in 2010's Reveal the Shield line that transformed into something similar. A generic scientific expedition vehicle with a front half of a modern off-road truck and the rear section that features treads instead of wheels, making it a half-track vehicle. Thankfully, the robot didn't share animated Perceptor's big head. Speaking of which, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself as I still think there's some more interesting bits to cover about the very first Perceptor toy released way back in 1985. This toy was originally MC-20 Microscope Robo from Takara's Microchange line. Two things worth mentioning about this original toy was that first, aside from transforming into a microscope, there was a third mode, a sort of mobile tank-like vehicle that could be driven by a Microman action figure. Secondly, before it was brought over to the US and initially repainted in a predominantly red color, which can be seen in the 1985 catalog, box art, and I'm assuming early releases, and the more familiar red and blue deco, the original Microscope bot was released in a more traditional and real-world black color. Now, I bring this up because years later, like many of the original Japanese Diaclone decos, this black version of Perceptor would be eventually brought over to the US as well, as a new character, the Decepticon Magnificus, who has quite the interesting story as well, starting out, as I mentioned, as a Decepticon military consul who was framed by political rivals, stripped of rank, and thrown into the brutal world of gladiator combat. His fortunes shift when his unique matter-enlarging scope, capable of pulling microscopic objects into full size, accidentally extracts an individual named Gamede, a prince from the microverse planet of Septos. Discovering that they had both been betrayed by those they once trusted, Magnificus and Gamede become inseparable allies. So inseparable that the duo were released as an exclusive eHobby 2-pack in 2005. Basically a 1985 Perceptor toy released in its original Japanese black deco, and Gamede as an updated version of the original Microman action figure. How cool is that? But anyway, back to Perceptor, who got his very first modern version that transformed into a microscope as part of the Titan's Return line in 2017, which meant that this time around, he was now a headmaster, partnered with a little dude named Convex that transformed into his head. And he also came with a sniper rifle, as a callback to his sniping days in IDW. As always, if Headmaster Sniper Perceptor isn't quite your thing, Hasbro got your back with the Studio Series 86 version in 2022, and a slightly retooled and more accurately colored version in 2025, now packed with the Decepticon Ratbat to, crack his nut, and the Autobot ram horn to save his ass. It's also worth noting that aside from transforming to his traditional microscope alt modes, both the Titan's Return and Studio Series 86 Perceptors could also convert to his third tank thing mode. And both were also recolored and re-released as modern versions of Magnificus. And finally, we have the masterpiece version of Perceptor, which we have yet to officially get from Takara. Instead, we have Fans Toys to the rescue, who very early on released their version of a masterpiece Perceptor called Tesla, after the scientist Nikola Tesla. Not the awesome 80s hard rock band, although I have to say, Tesla the band is one of the best rock bands to this day. Check them out. Sorry, I went off tangent there. I must have missed my dosage of Edison's medicine this morning. Anyway, like I said, Tesla was a very early release by Fans Toys, and as such, didn't have that premium finish that Fans Toys is now known for. I mean, he was decent, but was definitely made of some lower grade material. Anyway, I just randomly picked up this guy during a trip to Singapore sometime in 2015, thinking nothing of it, just checking off a character box for the shelf. But in hindsight, boy was it a super lucky purchase. As it would turn out, Tesla would be the only masterpiece version of Perceptor that we would see for the next 6 years. And as such, this guy became one of the most sought-after toys, fetching quite the inflated aftermarket price. But eventually, Fans Toys would wise up and get to work on their Tesla 2.0. But before that would see the light of day, another company, Transbots, undercut them with their own masterpiece Perceptor in 2021 called Janssen, which I'm guessing was named after the Belgian physician Paul Janssen, founder of the pharmaceutical company better known today as Johnson & Johnson Innovative Medicine. Anyway, name etymology aside, while I never handled it myself, based on what I've seen online, despite looking infinitely better than the original Tesla and coming packed with tons of accessories and display options, it seems that ex-Transbot's Jansen is a bit of a mess. I guess in their attempt to beat out Tesla 2.0, Jansen was rushed through QC like nobody's business. Anyway, not surprisingly, or actually, given how little EQ I have, surprisingly, I was able to hold out for Tesla 2.0, which was eventually released the following year. And well, what can I say? I'm glad I waited. While he may not have as many accessories as Jansen, I think he beats that other dude where it counts the most, i.e. in finish, engineering, design, and quality, along with the right amount of switch-out parts and accessories to turn your favorite Autobot scientist into a stone-cold sniper. I mean, seriously, what else would you need? Okay, fine, those teeny-tiny Perceptor, Bumblebee, and Brawn dudes look pretty cool, but that aside, I'll take Tesla, the bot, and the band over Jansen any day of the week. And speaking of days of the week, do you know which day I release a new video to my channel? Well, that would be Friday. If you want to watch my latest story, you can check it out over here. And while we're on the topic of Friday, do you know which bot could have really used one? And by that, I mean a companion named Friday, like from Robinson Crusoe. Well, that would be the often marooned Autobot, Wheelie. You can check out his story over here. Either way, thanks for watching, and I hope to hear from you in the comments below. Go ahead. Tell me your story.